For an architect, your name is everything. It's a promise of safety and security etched into steel and concrete. My name is now synonymous with a balcony that fell out of the sky on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, and the only thing that can clear it is a single line of code buried in a trillion-dollar company's server, a line of code they say doesn't exist. My name is Ben. I'm 32, and until 3 months ago, I was what you might call a rising star in the small world of sustainable and socially conscious architecture. It sounds grander than it is. Mostly, it means I design buildings that are good for the planet and for the people who can't afford penthouses overlooking Central Park. I work for a small firm, Davis and Associates, run by a man who still sketches with a 2B pencil and believes in the soul of a building, Mr. Davis. He's 65, kind-faced, and put his entire life savings into this company. He hired me straight out of grad school, saw something in my frantic, coffee-fueled designs that nobody else did. He gave me a chance, and for 7 years I've been trying to prove him right. My specialty, my edge, has always been technology, while Mr. Davis has an almost spiritual connection with blueprints and scale models. I found my faith in the digital, specifically in a piece of software called Aura. Aura wasn't just a design tool, it was the holy grail, a cutting-edge, AI-powered marvel that ran structural integrity simulations with unparalleled precision. It could predict the stress on a steel beam in a hurricane, model the effects of a seismic event down to the millimeter, and run a billion calculations in the time it takes to brew a cup of coffee. It was developed by a tech behemoth, a company we'll call Omnicorp, and they sold it as infallible. The architect's dream, a safety net woven from pure data. We paid a small fortune for the license, a fortune that stretched our small firm to its limits, but it was worth it. It allowed us to compete with the big guys, to create innovative, cost-effective designs that were, above all, safe. The project that changed everything was the Crestview Apartments. It was my baby, a 12-story affordable housing complex on the west side of the city. It was the biggest project of my career, the one I poured every ounce of myself into. I was proud of it, genuinely proud. We used sustainable materials, designed for maximum natural light, and every unit had a small, private balcony. It wasn't much, but it was a slice of open air for families who'd never had it. A place for a pot of herbs or a chair to watch the sunset. It was the heart of the design, that little touch of dignity. I ran the simulations for those balconies through Aura 100 times. I personally oversaw the calculations for the cantilevered design, the load-bearing capacity, the specific blend of high-strength concrete. Aura gave it the green light every single time. 100% structural integrity. Certified safe. I signed my name on those plans with absolute confidence. The building went up, families moved in, and I moved on to the next project, carrying the quiet satisfaction of having built something good. Then came the sunny Tuesday. I was in a meeting, presenting a new library design to the city council, when my phone started vibrating off the table. It was my office. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. A text from my assistant finally broke through. Call me. Emergency. Crestview. My blood ran cold. I excused myself, my hands shaking as I dialed. The first words I heard were a chaotic mess of sirens and panicked voices in the background. Ben, oh God, Ben, a balcony collapsed at Crestview, on the 5th floor. The world tilted. Collapsed? It wasn't possible. I'd run the numbers. Or had run the numbers. Was anyone hurt? I managed to stammer. There was a pause, a breath of static on the line that seemed to stretch for an eternity. Yes, my assistant said, her voice cracking. A woman was on it. They're saying it's bad. Really bad. The rest of the day was a blur of flashing lights, yellow tape, and the grim faces of investigators. The balcony on apartment 5B had sheared clean off the building, a concrete slab plummeting 50 feet to the courtyard below. A single mother, Maria, had been watering her plants. She was now in critical condition, with injuries the doctors described as catastrophic. Her life, and mine, had been irrevocably shattered in the space of a heartbeat. That night, sitting in my darkened office, surrounded by the plans that now felt like an accusation, I opened the Crestview files. I booted up Aura, my heart pounding in my chest. I ran the simulation for Balcony 5B again, and again, and again. Every time, the result came back the same. A bright green checkmark. 100% structural integrity. The software was telling me that what had just happened was impossible. But the woman in the hospital, the shattered concrete in the courtyard, and the gaping hole in the side of my building told a different story. The days that followed were a special kind of hell. The media descended like vultures, my name and face plastered across every local news channel. Architect's design floor leads to tragedy. The Crestview collapse, a promise broken. My name, the one I had worked so hard to build, was now synonymous with failure, with danger. The promise of safety I had etched into steel and concrete was now a lie. The firm was in lockdown. We were facing a mountain of lawsuits, not just from the victim's family, but from the city, from the building's developers. The Crestview project was frozen. Our other contracts were put on hold pending the investigation, and the phones rang incessantly with calls from angry clients and opportunistic lawyers. The atmosphere in our small office, once a buzzing hub of creativity and collaboration, turned thick with fear and suspicion. My colleagues, people I considered friends, couldn't look me in the eye. I didn't blame them. Their jobs, their mortgages, their kids' college funds, it was all tied to the firm, and I had just sunk the ship. Mr. Davis was a rock, at least on the surface. He handled the press, met with our lawyers, and tried to keep the panic from boiling over. But I saw the toll it was taking on him. The deep lines around his eyes, the way his hand trembled when he picked up his coffee cup. This firm was his life's work, and he was watching it crumble. "We'll get through this, Ben," he'd say, his voice lacking its usual warmth. "The truth will come out." But I wasn't so sure what the truth was anymore. My own investigation was an obsession. I barely slept. I lived on stale coffee and the knot of guilt in my stomach. I went over every single document, every blueprint, every email exchange. Nothing. My work was solid. My calculations were by the book. Every material specification was correct. That left only one possibility, or the infallible AI. I called on the Corp, the tech giant behind the software. I was routed through a labyrinth of automated menus and indifferent customer service reps before finally getting a junior engineer on the line. I explained the situation, my voice tight with desperation. He was dismissive. "Sir, an error in the structural simulation core as well. It's not possible. The system has triple redundancy checks. It's more likely there was a construction error or a material defect." "We've checked all that," I insisted. "The contractors were top-notch. The concrete mix was tested and verified. The error is not in the physical world, it's in the digital one. I need to see the deep-level simulation logs for my project." There was a long pause. "That's proprietary data, sir." We can't release that. I spent the next week fighting them, emailing, calling, pleading. I finally got escalated to their legal department, which is where I met her. Let's call her MS. Thorn. She was the physical embodiment of a corporate guillotine. Sharp, cold, and designed for one purpose: to make problems disappear. We met on a video call. She sat in a sterile, white office, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Collins," she began, her voice smooth as polished stone, "we've reviewed your case. Omnicorp stands by its product. Aura has been used in over 50,000 projects worldwide without a single recorded failure of this nature. The probability of a core simulation glitch is, for all practical purposes, zero." "But it's not zero," I shot back. "Something happened. A woman is in a hospital bed because your software failed, and my life is being destroyed because of it." She didn't flinch. "Our official position is that the fault lies in the design's application or in the physical construction. We will, of course, cooperate with the official investigation. But let me be perfectly clear. If you or your firm attempt to publicly attribute this tragedy to our software, we will defend our product and our reputation with the full and overwhelming resources of our corporation. It would be an unwinnable fight for a firm of your size. Are we understood?" It was a threat delivered with the casual indifference of a god swatting a fly. I was being stonewalled, gaslighted. They were going to hang me out to dry. That night, fueled by a rage I hadn't felt before, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have. I still had my Aura access credentials. I wasn't a hacker, but I knew the system's architecture better than most. I started digging, not into the user-friendly interface, but into the raw data logs, the endless streams of alphanumeric code that represented the AI's thinking process. For hours, I stared at the screen, my eyes burning, scrolling through millions of lines of data. It was gibberish to the naked eye. Then, at 3 a.m., I saw it. A single line. In the final simulation run for the Crestview balconies, a run that had returned a 100% pass, there was an anomaly. A single string of code deep in the subprocessor log that was different from the 99 identical runs before it. It was a value overflow error, a momentary, infinitesimal miscalculation. The AI had rounded a number, a decimal point, a fraction of a millimeter in the calculation of stress tolerance. It was a 1 in a billion glitch, a digital ghost in the machine. Or I had made a mistake, a tiny one, but in architecture, tiny mistakes can bring down buildings. I had found it. The single line of code that could clear my name. The proof. Finding the glitch felt like a victory, but it was a lonely one. It was like finding a single grain of sand on a beach and trying to convince the world it was proof of a lost city. I had a screenshot of a line of code. Omnicorp had an army of lawyers and a trillion-dollar reputation. My discovery, which felt so monumental in the dead of night, seemed fragile and insignificant in the light of day. I took my findings to our firm's lawyer. He was a decent man, but pragmatic. He looked at my printout, then at me over the top of his glasses. "Ben, this is interesting. But it's not a smoking gun. It's circumstantial. They'll say you fabricated it. They'll hire a dozen experts to testify that a glitch like this is impossible. In court, it's not about what's true, it's about what you can prove. And a David like us can't prove anything against a Goliath like Omnicorp." He was right. The official investigation was leaning towards architectural error. The narrative was set. I was the promising young architect who got too ambitious, who cut a corner, who made a mistake that cost a woman her ability to walk. The victim, Maria, was now a constant feature in the news, her story a heart-wrenching reminder of the human cost. She was facing years of rehabilitation, a mountain of medical bills, and a life that would never be the same. Every time I saw her face, a fresh wave of guilt washed over me. Even if the glitch was real, it was my name on the plans. My ultimate responsibility. The strain was tearing the firm apart. Two of our junior architects quit. Our best draftsman took a job with a competitor. The projects we still had were draining away. Mr. Davis had to take out a second mortgage on his house just to cover payroll and our legal fees. I saw him in his office one evening, staring at an old photograph of him and his wife breaking ground on his very first building. His shoulders were slumped. He looked defeated. "I sunk everything I have into this place, Ben," he said, his voice quiet. "My pension, our savings. It was supposed to be my legacy. Something to leave behind." He looked at me, not with anger, but with a deep, bottomless sadness. "I believe you, son. I know you wouldn't be careless with people's lives. But believing you and saving this firm are two different things." That's when the offer came. It was delivered by Ms. Fawn herself. She didn't bother with a video call this time. She sent a crisp, menacing letter. It was a settlement offer. Omnicorp, as a gesture of goodwill to the community, was willing to contribute a significant amount to a victims fund for Maria. They would also use their considerable influence to make our other legal problems manageable. Our insurance would pay out, the city's lawsuit would be dropped, and the developers would settle out of court. The firm would survive. Our colleagues would keep their jobs. Mr. Davis wouldn't lose his house. There was, of course, a condition. I had to take full and public responsibility. I would have to sign a statement admitting to a fatal flaw in my design. I would lose my architect's license, the career I had spent my entire adult life building. I would be professionally and personally ruined. And, of course, I would have to sign an ironclad non-disclosure agreement, promising to never again mention or any alleged software malfunction. They weren't just offering to save my firm, they were offering to buy my silence. I stared at the letter for what felt like hours. It was a devil's bargain. Sacrifice myself to save everyone I cared about. Or I could fight. I could leak the evidence. Go to the press, post it online, shout it from the rooftops. It would be a messy, brutal war. Omnicorp would crush us in court, bankrupting the firm and leaving everyone, including Mr. Davis, with nothing. But the truth would be out there. Maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to clear my name. But at what cost? Who would I be saving? Just myself. I walked into Mr. Davis's office and laid the letter on his desk. He read it slowly, his expression unchanging. He took off his glasses and rubbed his tired eyes. He looked out the window at the city skyline, at the buildings that were a testament to a long, honorable career. "When I was starting out," he said softly, "your reputation was all you had. It was your bond. People had to trust that the ground beneath their feet was solid, that the roof over their heads wouldn't fall. I've lived my whole life by that." He turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw tears welling in his eyes. "They're offering us a way out, Ben. A way for this firm, for these people, to have a future." He took a deep, shaky breath. "Take the deal. Save them, please." Leaving Mr. Davis's office felt like walking away from a wreckage. His words echoed in my head: "Take the deal. Save them." He was asking me to fall on my sword. not for a lie, but for a greater good. To become the villain in the story so that everyone else could have a happy ending. I went home to my small apartment, the settlement offer clutched in my hand like a death sentence. For 2 days, I was a ghost. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't eat. I just sat there, in the silence, weighing two impossible futures. In one future, I sign the papers. I become Ben Collins, the disgraced architect. I lose my license, my career, my name. I might even face criminal charges for negligence. But Davis and Associates survives. My colleagues keep their jobs. Mr. Davis doesn't lose his home, his life's work. Maria, the victim, gets a substantial settlement that will take care of her for the rest of her life. The pain is contained, cauterized. It all ends with me. In the other future, I fight. I leak the log file. I become a whistleblower. The story explodes. It's not just about a balcony anymore, it's about a trillion-dollar tech company selling a flawed product that endangers lives. The ensuing legal battle would be a nuclear winter. Only corpse lawyers would bury us. They'd tear me apart on the stand, paint me as a disgruntled, incompetent architect trying to shift blame. The firm would be bankrupted within weeks. My colleagues, my friends, would be out of work in a brutal job market. Mr. Davis would lose everything. And for what? There was no guarantee I'd win. The public might not believe me. The line of code might be dismissed as a forgery. My name might be cleared in my own mind, but I'd be the man who destroyed the lives of everyone who ever trusted him. I thought about the intimidating face of MS. Fawn, her cold certainty that they could crush me. The sheer injustice of it made my blood boil. They were knowingly putting people at risk. What if another glitch happened? What if next time it wasn't a balcony, but a whole building? My silence could have a body count. Then I thought about Maria. Her life was already destroyed. Taking Omnicorp down wouldn't give her back the use of her legs. The settlement, the goodwill gesture, was blood money, but it was real. It would pay for the best doctors, for a comfortable home, for her child's future. My quest for vindication wouldn't do any of that. On the third day, I made a decision. I put on a suit, walked back into the office, and found Mr. Davis. "I'll do it," I said. The relief that washed over his face was so profound it almost broke my heart. The meeting with MS. Thorne was as sterile and inhuman as our first video call. It took place in a glass-walled conference room in her firm's downtown skyscraper. I felt small and insignificant. I signed the documents, my hand steady. With each stroke of the pen, I felt a piece of myself dying. The admission of guilt. The NDA. The surrender. When it was done, she slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a press release. My public confession. For immediate release, it began. I stood up. "Before you send that out," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, "I want you to know something. I have a copy of the anomalous log file. It's on an encrypted drive, set to be released to several major news outlets and engineering ethics boards via a dead man's switch. If anything happens to me, if I get into a car accident, if I trip and fall down the stairs, it goes public." MS. Thorne's mask of composure finally slipped. For a fraction of a second, I saw a flicker of genuine shock in her eyes. "That's blackmail, Mr. Collins." "No," I said, looking her directly in the eye. "It's insurance. I'm holding up my end of the bargain. I'm taking the fall. I will disappear. But Omnicorp is going to quietly and permanently fix the flaw in their software. You are going to issue a mandatory, behind-the-scenes patch to all of your users, citing a minor performance update. Because if another building fails, if another person gets hurt because of that glitch, my confession won't be worth the paper it's printed on. The truth will come out, and my story will be posthumously corroborated. Your lie is only safe as long as your product is. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of that glass tower, leaving my career, my reputation, and my future in ashes behind me. It's been 6 months now. I'm no longer an architect. I work as a consultant for a small construction company, reviewing plans. It's anonymous work, and it pays the bills. The firm was saved. Mr. Davis retired, leaving the company in the hands of the senior staff. My old colleagues are still employed. Maria is receiving the best care money can buy. And a week after I signed those papers, Aura released a mandatory critical stability update. I sacrificed my name to save them, but I also forced a monster to fix its own cage. I chose the gray area. I live with that choice every day. Sometimes I walk by the Crestview apartments. The balcony has been rebuilt. Flowers sit in a planter where Maria's used to be. The residents feel safe. They don't know that their safety was bought with a lie, a threat, and the ghost of a career. I upheld my promise to Mr. Davis. I protected the people who depended on me. But I also let a guilty corporation walk away clean, and I wonder if I've just made the world more dangerous by showing them they can buy their way out of anything. So, what would you have done? Would you have detonated the bomb to expose the truth, knowing the shrapnel would hit everyone you love? Or would you have swallowed the poison to save them and let the poisoner walk free? Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.